Boy, do I miss camping. That was so much fun. We went out with the kids, set up the tent. You had the campfires, and I love campfires. I could sit and watch those things for hours. The stars, the crisp mornings, the birds singing you awake. It was wonderful. Boy, I miss camping. When the kids were little, we used to set up something called a 4-man tent. Now, this was a 4-man tent, not so much for how many people it would hold, but how many it took to set it up. This was a beast that we had to set up. Usually we were doing this after the kids had ridden with us for a while. They were car steer crazy, so they're buzzing around the campsite, fighting with each other. They're supposed to be doing this, and they're doing that, and doing all kinds of things. You know, maybe I don't miss camping so much after all when I think about it. As any camper knows, a good camping experience is getting everything set up right. You got to get the tent facing the correct direction. If the door is facing uphill, even a little bit, and you get some rain, you're going to get wet. You've got to get stuff where you can get at it, but where it's not in the way. And clotheslines. Oh, we love clotheslines, but you can't string them too close to the campfire or everything smells like smoke. You got to get the campsite set up just right. Now, in the passage that I read today, Jesus is setting up camp for the last and most important week of his life. Now, like our family campsite setup, tensions are high. The crowd is like your kids. You know, you get the campsite all set up and your kids are like, okay, what's next? What are we doing now? And you just want to sit down and relax for a while. The crowd was like that. They were looking for Jesus. What's coming next? What's going to happen? And the chief priests and the Pharisees had a plan. They had it in for Jesus, and they were going to get him. In this very tense campground setting, Jesus set up camp with 3 of his closest and dearest friends and set himself up in a place where he was loved. It tells us that it's okay to love Jesus deeply. Now think about this narrative. It says that Lazarus reclined at the table with Jesus. Not too long before, Lazarus had been so sick that he had died of it. The disease had been so intense in his body that it had killed him not that long ago. And then he laid in a tomb for 4 days. No food, no water, no medicine, no light, maybe even not a lot of air. They weren't expecting a guy in there to breathe. And now Lazarus, even though Jesus healed him and he came forth, I would think he's still kind of weak. I mean, when my brother gets out of that total knee replacement, first couple of weeks, you're kind of groggy. You're kind of out of it. But Lazarus was determined, because he loved Jesus, that he was going to be there, reclining at the table with him. He was determined, even if he didn't feel up to it, that he was going to be with Jesus because he loved him. Martha prepared the meal and got things ready. She did this happily. Now, she didn't always do that. You remember there's a story where Martha came to Jesus and said, hey, tell Mary to get in the kitchen and help me. Well, there's none of that this time. Actually, Martha might have shooed Mary out of the kitchen and said, listen, I'm doing this. This is my gift to Jesus. I'm going to prepare the food. And I'm going to serve because I love Jesus. Martha gave her gifts and her talents to Jesus because she loved him. Is that why we do things in the church and for others? Hopefully it is, because we love Jesus. He's done so much for us. Martha was the same way. And then there's Mary. So emotional and impulsive and extravagant in her love for Jesus. She brought out this pint of nard and just poured it all over his legs and feet, wiped it off with her hair. Very extravagant, just impulsive way of showing her love to Jesus. Do we ever do anything, maybe even a little out of our comfort zone, or certainly something expensive or costly to us, just because we love Jesus? That's what Mary did. In today's money, and up here in the diffuser is lavender, which is very similar to nard or spikenard that she used. All these oils are coming back now, and people are using them. So you can go on Amazon.com and look up nard or spikenard. At today's prices, a pint of that would be over $1,000 that she invested in Jesus. Amazing, extravagant love. And Jesus set up for this last week of his life in this household that he knew was going to give him that love. Lazarus, Mary, and Martha built a secure space out of love for Jesus to deal with the last week of his life. Now, we all need a secure space like that. In the beginning, God designed that to be the family. That a child would grow up knowing that mom and dad love each other and love them, and that would be a secure place where they could learn and grow until they could step out into the world themselves. One of my daughters put it this way, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. She said, I don't have to hold in my bodily gases because we're family. Isn't that the truth? We need somewhere where we can be ourselves even when we don't smell the best. We need somewhere where we know that we are accepted and loved for who we are. We're encouraged to be the best we can be, and we're loved for who we are. That's where Jesus set himself up for this last week of his life. Well, it wasn't all perfect there. Judas Iscariot had to get in on the action. He was captured by the cost of this gift that Mary invested in Jesus. To be honest with you, I think that Judas was jealous of her. He couldn't imagine ever giving a gift that expensive to Jesus because poor old Judas was greedy. He was wrapped up in money. And he couldn't imagine dumping $1,000 on Jesus' feet. And he was jealous of that impulsive love. And so he looked at her and he said, you should have sold that and given that to the poor. Made himself look better thinking about the poor and tried to make her look worse. He was speaking out of jealousy and out of greed. He was hoping that some of that money would pass through his hands, right? Maybe she's got another jar back there. She can go sell that to the poor and I can skim some off the top. Judas's jealousy and greed were just all wrapped up together. And Jesus put an immediate stop to that conversation. He said, leave her alone. Full stop. This conversation is done. Don't even go there, Judas. Stop going down that path. We're not going to talk about Mary and her wonderful gift this way. We've tried to keep it in our house that a full stop is when you start calling somebody else in the house names. That's a full stop. Time out, don't do that, not allowed. That's a full stop. If my kids are giving attitude to their mother, that's a full stop. Don't do that. And vice versa. What's a full stop in your house? What value or line can't be crossed and you say, nope, that's enough, full stop? Jesus pulled a full stop right here and said, this is enough. Then Jesus said something really strange. Here's the guy who just reversed a burial, right? Lazarus had been dead, been in the grave for 4 days, he'd been buried, and the way they did it back then is very different than we do it now. Actually, the Egyptians do it more similar than we do when they did their embalming process. But according to Old Testament law and good practice, if somebody died during the daylight, they needed to be buried before it got dark. That was law. And if you died after dark, you got buried before the sun came up the next morning. Burials were quick back then, and they would wrap them, like the mummy, in strips of cloth, but instead there'd be lots of spices in between to kind of to cut down on the odors. And then that person would be buried, or in this case, put in a burial cave. That's where Lazarus had been sealed in a cave. Now we know that Jesus' own burial would happen very quickly. He died mid-afternoon, and he still had to be taken down from the cross, and then very rapidly prepared for his burial and taken to the cave and put in. Matter of fact, it happened so fast that the women were concerned, and as soon as they could get back there early Sunday morning, they wanted to finish the process. Maybe it only got halfway wrapped. But they had stuff they were going to finish the process. Jesus, who had just reversed a burial, now says, God caused Mary to save this pint of nard for my burial. God knows things are going to happen so fast on that day that she needs to invest this nard on me. Now, I don't know, I'm starting to smell it a little bit. I don't know if y'all can smell some of the pint of nard dumped on him, that Jesus probably kept that smell all through the week. I wouldn't be surprised if when those Roman soldiers nailed his feet to the cross, that they didn't catch a scent of that nard that had been invested. Perhaps even when they took the body down, that smell lingered there. They didn't take baths and showers and clean themselves as extensively as we do. Jesus likely carried that beautiful gift right into the tomb with him. Jesus set up camp with Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. But this was a camp that was preparing him to die. And here, even in this first day of getting set up, his death was brought up in the camp. Well, once the camp was set up, the crowd found him, just like the kids. Hey, Jesus, what you going to do now? Let's go see what's next. What's going on now? And let's see your buddy Lazarus, too. The crowd came and they found him after he'd gotten all set up and wanted to know what was next. And once the camp was set, the chief priests, they have to expand their plans. Not only are we going to kill Jesus, he's going to die to save the nation, the chief priest said, but it looks like we're going to have to include Lazarus as well because of his resurrection from the dead. This is a time when evil reigned and had influence and was able to expand its influence among people. In this camp of love, Jesus established the importance of love. Judas didn't live in that love, unfortunately. I can't imagine it. He's one of the 12. He's walked with Jesus. He's talked with Jesus. He's seen the miracles. He's picked up the pieces of bread. He's seen the healings. But yet greed still owned his heart. You remember when Jesus dealt with sinners, he dealt with the woman caught in adultery. He said to her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." He gave her hope of a new life. When the paralytic was carried in by the 4 friends and let down through the ceiling, Jesus went over to him and he said, "Son, your sins are forgiven." And then he said, "Take up your mat and walk." Jesus' forgiveness always came with the hope of new life. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived in that hope. Judas did not. We can live in that hope today. Even as we start looking into the season of Lent and preparing for God's greatest gift, giving himself on the cross for us and rising to new life, we can live in that hope. We can know that God has forgiven us and that his new life is at work in us. We're not just forgiven for sin, as wonderful as that is. And it's great when somebody forgives us for something we've done wrong. But we also are given the hope that through Jesus we can live a new life free from the power of sin. Do you know that hope today? You can. You should. You need to live in that hope. Jesus wants you to have that hope, even as we start looking into Lent. As a response, let's turn